Well, good afternoon, everyone. We are happy to have everyone here. Welcome to the Hour of Code Employer Keynote panel. The panel will be facilitated by the STEM Executive Director, Cheryl Frederick. But in the meantime, I'm going to start us off with some housekeeping information. So my name is Daisy Gillum. I'm the Employer Relations Partner for the Northeastern states in the U.S. There is a chat function at the bottom, so if you can in the chat, let us know where you're coming in from, if you're staff, student, faculty. I just like to know kind of where everyone is coming in from. And just as a note, this session is being recorded. But with that, I wanted to go ahead and cover our access and accommodations. So just so you know that at SNHU, it is important for us and it is our practice to create an inclusive and accessible learning environment. If you do need support or assistance, please let OAC know as soon as possible. There's also some other contact information here as well. So to kick us off, I'm going to go ahead and actually, no, I apologize. What I'm going to do is let you guys know that we're also joined by some STEM faculty and staff here as well. So I don't know if I can even cover everyone. We've got Dan, yeah, Dan's here. Sharon, Gary, Jamie are all here as well. And we're all also going to be in the chat throughout the presentation. So if you have any questions for us or for the panelists, let us know in the chat. And then additionally, there's also a Q&A if you would prefer to have your questions be anonymous for any reason whatsoever. So now I will introduce our panelists. So I'm going to begin with Lila. She is the Information Security Manager at Solution Health. Her business experience is extensive. It includes management, expansion, digital security, strategy, customer needs. She's also skilled in corporate and business management and strategy, digital security, and data privacy compliance. Our next panelist is Arthur. Arthur is with M3. He graduated Bloomfield College with a double major in computer science and business administration. He works with Python, Java, JavaScript, and many others. And he also considers himself a lifelong learner, which I can definitely appreciate. Our next panelist is Judy. So Judy is a senior developer with Nexient. She is currently transitioning from C++ backend development to React and front-end development. She graduated from Wayne State University in computer science. She also considers herself a mentor, career coach, and aspiring leader. And she is an active member of Women in Nexient, which I think is amazing. Our last but not least, Kale is our next panelist. Kale is actually currently not here with us right now. We've got a email out to him to see what's going on. But in the meantime, I'll let you guys know that he's been in the tech industry since 2006. He is currently a senior software engineer at Silvertech. He has previously worked for a small startup in Seattle and also worked for Oracle in San Francisco. He uses Python, JavaScript, and a lot of others that I actually couldn't even pronounce. So please look at his bio because it's very extensive. He has a bachelor's in English and a master's in computer science. And additionally, he is a dad of 2 kids and has a dog who sounds absolutely adorable. This is actually his second time doing an hour of code. So with that, we are happy to have all of you here. I'm going to go ahead and I will actually stop screen sharing. And Cheryl, if you wanted to go ahead and kick us off, we are ready to learn.
Sure. So I'm Cheryl Frederick. I'm the Executive Director of STEM Programs Online. And I have been in online higher education for 16 years, 7 of those at SNHU. And prior to being in higher ed, I was a software developer for many, many years. So I know what it's like to have those exciting opportunities to write code. And I've written code for some really interesting industries, including the Department of Defense, and have even written code for ESPN. So I'm excited that you're here, and I'm excited to facilitate this discussion with our panelists. So the way I'd like to do this is I'll ask a question, and I'd like to just let the panelists jump in and respond. Each of them has their own background and experiences and perspectives, so I think we won't necessarily get the same response to every question, so that would actually enrich the conversation. And then, as Daisy mentioned, you can also type in questions in the chat. So one of the questions that often comes up when I teach, so I also teach, is what is it like to be a software developer? What is it like for what you do as a security practitioner in the field? So I'd like for each panelist to talk about, what is it like? What's the day in the life in the role? What is it like?
Okay, I guess I'll kickstart. So, well, before we started, we were having some chat on the background with the other panelists, and currently, and for the past 10 years, I have dedicated myself to digital security and data privacy. So I had my own company where I worked with developing and debugging and, like all of the cool, nice stuff. To me, coding is like giving birth to something that is yours. It's like you put all those things on the screen and then you see it transforming into, like something else, especially when it comes to, like the front end. A lot of people are used to just going to games and going to websites and you see the front end, but you don't think about how that came about. And that's what we do on the background. That's what we create. In digital security, there's no dull moment. And it's, I was joking with the other panelists. I said, for me, every day is another day, another threat. So we are always learning. We are definitely forever learners. There is not one day that I will say, I will have to stop reading or I will have to stop developing my skills, because with the evolution of, like the digitization and the world coming, like towards this way with what happened in this past 2 years, it is extremely important to stay up to date, and the technology has been growing even in a faster pace than it was before. So I would say that a day in my life, at least, is never dull. It's always a different thing. It's always a different problem to solve, or a different, like thing to create to facilitate the lives of others. So that would be for me.
I can go ahead and kind of kick off as the next person. So my name is Judy, and I work at Nexient, which is an NTT data company. Our company is a very agile company, so our daily sort of routine looks very agile. Every morning we have our daily scrub meetings where we give our updates. And then for me specifically on my team, since I am currently actually learning React, it's been an interesting transition coming from C++ and backend and going to front end. But it's been a great learning experience for me. So part of that kind of looks like every day, myself and my other team members, we have what we call a morning mashup, where we go over, what blockers are, causing any of us to have a little bit of difficulty, or if there's anything we have questions on, basically setting up the day for success for all of us. And so there's a lot of collaboration on a daily basis for me. And then around that, aside from working on, whatever stories I have assigned to me at any given time, a lot of my day looks like career coaching. I have several coachees who I coach in their careers at Nexient. I have my own career coach as well, who I'm thankful to, directing me in my career. And I do a lot of work for our internal group called Women in Nexient, or WIN for short, where we are striving to support each other as women in the company and to promote their growth and everything like that. Increasing the diversity, and having more women in the company, more women in leadership, helping us to develop our leadership skills and things like that. I thoroughly enjoy that aspect of what I do. I'm thankful that my day doesn't just look like coding from dawn till dusk, right? I'm able to make a difference in the company. So.
Great. Arthur, what's it like
Hey
for you?
everyone. Yeah, I guess I'm the next to go. My name's Arthur. As of right now, I do work at FINRA, um, as a contractor for M3. And my day sounds similar to a lot of what you guys have heard. So usually I would start my days around 9:15. We'll have a stand-up meeting where we talk about where everyone is with the current task. And this is the part where if there's a blocker or something that somebody's struggling with, we talk about it as a team, and then we found a solution, whether somebody else needs to give their input into that or look more into it. We do some of those. And then later on in the day, depending on the task that I have, since part of being a software developer is constantly learning, is doing a lot of research. So let's say you are working on something you're not sure it is quite yet. You will do the research that's necessary, and then you will go ahead and code those things. Later along the day, you could, certain days we'll have planning meetings where we plan what we're gonna work on for the next few weeks, or brainstorm as a team onto how we wanna solve certain problems. um, so it's coding, but it's also a lot of collaboration, and I'm very thankful that I'm part of a team where collaboration is something um, that we prioritize. So I think it's it's a lot of learning, but a lot of coding at the same time, and I think it's a enjoyable experience if you love new problems and finding ways to grow as a software developer. So that's pretty much what my day seems. And another thing that's important to mention is you do a lot of code reviews where your peers would write code and then you would look into it, see if there's anything that can be improved, and we have conversations based around those. So this is pretty much what my everyday looks like.
Great. Thank you, Arthur. Kale, the question is, describe a day in the life in your role.
Um, let's see. I get into work about 8 o'clock. I have a couple meetings in the morning. I sit down with like the CTOs and the directors, and we talk about just things we're working on and what we're going to do with the rest of the day. And pretty much after 10 o'clock, it's straight development and programming. We develop a bunch of websites for big customers like the state of New Hampshire, banks, oil companies, you name it. So yeah, it's just meetings in the morning and then a lot of development in the afternoon.
Great. Thank you, Kale. So the next question is around what are some of the essential soft skills that are needed to drive success for you? And I did hear several of you mention those, like communication skills. Sounds like it's super important. You're having conversations with leadership, sometimes executive leadership, sometimes with customers. Couple of you mentioned stand-ups and having those conversations with your team, and also being able to effectively and timely bringing up issues that you've running into so that you can get some mitigation practices going to around those issues. So I'll start with Arthur, if you don't mind. I'd like for you to talk about what do you think are some essential soft skills that drove your success in industry?
That's a very good question, right? When I was listening to you ask the question, something that really came to mind for me is the fact that to to do well in what we do, you have to be constantly willing to learn. And one of the soft skills that I've had in my entire career so far is I love learning from people. And if I see somebody with a skill set that I would like to add to mine, I don't mind asking them, hey, this is a good skill set that you have. How did you develop it? What resources have you used to do those things? So not being shy to tell somebody else that you admire a skill set that they have and that you would like to, use the same resources to take the same path that they took, is something that's been really useful to me so far.
Great, thank you. Lila.
Hi. Yeah, I agree with Arthur. Like it's very hard to say like what set of skills do you need, but communication is certainly one of them. And we all mentioned how communication is important. I think the one thing we all have in common is we always start the day with, like the huddles and the meeting with the team and helping each other. So communication not only in, like knowing like how to tell people what you're doing, but also learning how to listen to other people and what they need. Especially if you are on, pretty much any developer job, whether it is, like for a software company or if you are a data analyst and so on, you need to understand what the end user wants, what do they need, and then translate that into, like a program that will provide them that. So that's why communicating is so important. And also, if you are working for a company and you have your own ideas, you need to know how to get the buy-in. You need to know how to talk tech to non-tech people. That is extremely important. So I would say that that's the skill number one.
Great. Judy?
I want to first of all piggyback off of what Lila said about the distinguishing like tech people and non-tech people. I actually run our trainings on client interaction, and that is a huge thing considering your audience when it comes to those client interactions, how much technical background they have. And that's all, that all kind of comes under the umbrella of communication, right? Whether that's with your teammates or with your clients, with your managers, with any other leadership folks, right? Another one that I want to throw out there that I feel is an excellent skill to develop, and it is hard to develop, but as you get more comfortable with it, it's very beneficial, is not being afraid to ask questions. We tend to it's hard to ask questions sometimes, right? We might be worried that the question is not a good question, right? There's no such thing as a stupid or a bad question, right? Or we may worry that the question is a junior level question or a question that we should already know the answer to. And if we think about it, we're in a field that's constantly changing, so we're all constantly learning. So then, don't be afraid to ask questions. The other thing about asking questions is if you're stuck on an issue, on a story, on a bug for, hours, days, heaven forbid, weeks, asking questions, asking coworkers for help, colleagues for help, will help you get unstuck and be able to solve the problem more quickly and get things moving forward and help with the team moving forward. So that is the biggest one I would definitely bring to light.
Gail, what would you like to add to this?
A lot of tech people focus on coding and development. I think that English and writing emails is important. You're gonna write a lot of code, but you're also gonna write a lot of emails to your managers, to your customers, and then the other thing I would say is time management. Get used to calendars, get good at calendars. As you get into your career, you're gonna be doing a lot of work.
Great. Thank you. Judy, you had mentioned something about your passion and commitment to developing women leaders and your commitment towards diversity where you work. So the next question for the panel is, with diversity and inclusion becoming more and more increasingly important for success in fields including cybersecurity, software development, AI, robotics, what do you see the industry doing to recruit a more diverse workforce?
That is an excellent question. From my personal perspective, working at Nexient, our company had recently had a a sort of campaign to try to get more women hired into Nexient. And just the fact that our company has an internal group that we've developed called Women in Nexient, where we are continuously striving to build each other up. Being able to sort of showcase that, I feel makes it a lot more desirable for Nexient to be a place for like women to come and work, because they see that, and that's something that, women, want to see, that cohesion, that bond, that, that sort of thing coming from the company. So speaking from personal experience, Women in Nexient actually didn't exist when I first came into Nexient. And as soon as it did, I hopped right on that train to start helping to build each other up, build up our leadership skills. And we're continuously trying to see what we can do to help women in tech in the community as well, not just in Nexient. I'm actually the leader of our little subcommittee, as we like to call it, for that specifically for giving back to women in tech in the community, whether that's nonprofit groups such as Sisters Code, which is in Detroit, or Girls Who Code, we're currently in the works with. So that's at least in the sense of increasing diversity and having more women in the tech field. That is what I have been seeing, and it's been a great feeling to be part of that initiative.
Great. Arthur, what would you like to add to that?
I think that's a great point as well, right? From FINRA's perspective, we have goals that we set for diversity and just making sure that we are as inclusive as we can. But I think a thing that somebody might misconstrue is you would think that making sure that a workplace is diverse comes from management, but things like that could also be done from the point of view of just anyone, just going out of your way to make somebody feel like they belong, and being as open-minded and understanding as possible. So I think the organization does a good job at making sure that they are as diverse as they can be, but it's also important that all of us make an effort to be as open and welcoming as we can be as well.
I love that point about making others feel included and being open-minded. I think that's super important. Thank you for that. Kale, what are your thoughts?
I would say the entire tech industry as a whole tends to lean left politically. So we're very open to, social equity and getting everybody up to speed and trying to reach out to different communities to see if we can get them involved in, the space and in the industry. I think every HR department I've dealt with has been, considered that part of their main mission is to diversify the workforce. So I would say most companies, a lot of tech companies will give you a shot and welcome all types of people.
Great, thank you. Lila.
Hi. Yeah, I agree with what everybody said. And particularly one of the things that Arthur said is it's not only a posture of the company. So it's really important for companies to, reach out to different communities to, have a policy or, include a goal on, diversity and so on. But when it comes to the work and the interviews and everything, it's the managers who are interviewing. They are the ones deciding who they want to hire or not. So I think that not only changing the company posture, but also preparing the directors and the managers, the leaders, to be actually inclusive in, and to also address the implicit bias that unfortunately still exists very largely in this industry. And I speak not only as a woman, I also speak as a Latina, and I have lived and I have seen it directly. So it doesn't matter if the company changes its posture, if the managers and directors are not actually trained for it, are not getting, like training and the talk and, like are being inclusive of other people, making them feel welcome and grow. Because unfortunately, we still see that when it comes to just like a male, female, for example, in the IT industry, a woman would have to do a lot more to show their services. And usually they are promoted based on accomplishment when men are actually promoted on potential. And that are many researches to back this up. So we have come a long way. And at Solution Health, I love how it is actually our tech team and security, we're mostly women. And it's really important also for women to support other women, as Judy, like participates on so many committees and groups. I do too as well. And I think it's important for all of us, not only women, but men also, to participate of all these groups and bring their perspective and learn from people who have experienced and so on, so that we can, like continue to evolve. We have gonna come a long way, but we still have a long way to go.
I love that point, that the sense I get is we're never going to arrive there, right? It's like the work is always going to have to evolve, and different things will come up over time too that's going to influence the industry and work practices. And I also really like the point about we have to support each other. Women need to support each other, and I think that's really important as well. I want to take a moment and shift a little bit to some of the questions that have come in from the chat. There's several of our attendees want to know what got you interested in tech to start with. How did you pick these fields, and why did you pursue them? So Lila, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. So I put it on the chat, but actually when I came into tech, I wanted to be a graphic designer. So I've always been very artistic and I love the 3D art. And that's what I wanted to do. I thought I was going to be the next, like Pixar, DreamWorks, like graphic design and so on, until I learned C and Java. And I started doing the background of games. I started computer science, I was 17 years old. So my first internship was actually at a gaming group. And I just fell in love with giving life to a game, to like being on the background and putting all those mathematical equations and, like all those commands, and then see that turning into, like a game that people could enjoy. My family was like, oh my God, no way. Like, how did you do this? And they didn't even believe if I showed the background. So that's how I fell in love with programming. And ever since, I just been learning and exploring other areas of, like programming, such as web designing. I've been in a gaming group. I was a SQL programmer. I've worked with data analytics, and now for the past 10 years, I dedicated myself to digital security. So it's always learning and evolving, and you can always go somewhere else and learn more. So there's not a dull moment in IT.
Arthur, how about you? What started your journey?
Mine was just a coincidence. I was just looking for an extra elective in my first semester, and somebody said, "Hey, take programming 1. It could be fun." And then I tried it, and it was like the most fun thing I've ever done. And ever since, I've been coding. I think that also goes to one of the things that I always think, which is, if you want to enjoy doing this, you gotta allow yourself to explore things without boundaries and just have fun with the process. As in, if my day-to-day work can maybe get boring on a day, or something that I'm working on is difficult, I always have my personal projects to go back to and just enjoy the process of creating. So for me, it was just a change, but I've loved it ever since.
That's awesome to hear. Kale, how about you?
Let's see, as a kid back in the 90s when AOL and dial-up was the thing, I used to, back then you had to log onto the internet when your mother wasn't on the phone because you had to share the same line. So I would wait really late at night for my mom to be done talking to all the relatives and her friends and dial up, get on the internet, and I would start building websites for fun and just never stopped. I was an English major as a bachelor's degree, and I wanted to write science fiction. And then once I graduated, I was like, I'd rather live it. And so just started really diving into the tech scene and went to Silicon Valley, went to Seattle, and just went headfirst into it.
Yeah, you had to remember to switch the phone jacks, right? Because
Yeah.
God forbid you went to bed and didn't change it and nobody's calling all day. What's going on? Right?
The funny thing is when someone picked up the phone, you would hear like the first couple words of the conversation on your computer, and then you get kicked off.
Yep, I remember those days well. Judy, what got you started?
So growing up, kind of in a similar time period, I always enjoyed, playing games on the computer, just, doing things on the computer. In the days of MySpace, I would play around with the CSS code to make the profile look pretty, right? That sort of thing. But, I never really thought I wanted to do it as a career. I always thought I wanted to be a doctor. And so I got into college and I didn't go for full med school, but I went for a pre-physician assistant program. Got a few semesters in and, things were going fine, for what it was worth at the time. But I decided I wanted something to fall back on just in case, right? And it was like, I had a web design class back in high school that I thought was pretty fun. There's a minor called bioinformatics, which is if you take, computer programming and genetics and you mash them together, that's what you get. And I was like, all right, that might be fun, right? I took my first C++ class and I was hooked. I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. This is it. And so then came all of the transitioning from, the university I was at the time, going to community college to, make sure this was what I wanted to do, earn up the credits, transfer to a new university, and then finally finish up with my bachelor's degree. And I'm extremely glad that I did make that change because I'm extremely happy where I am now. So.
That's great. It's great to hear all these exciting stories. So a lot of questions in the chat related how to get started. So what advice would you offer to those that are newbies or just they don't code yet at all? And how could they get started? How could they explode this world other than taking an hour and just doing one of the hour code activities? What advice would you give to somebody who's just starting out or just curious? So we'll start with you, Judy, please.
Sure thing. So I would say just starting out, if for some reason you're maybe not able to take a course at like a university or even like a community college or something like that, and it all depends on your learning style, right? We all learn differently. Some of us learn better, like myself, guided by a professor or like a guided course on Udemy or something like that. Whereas others of us can learn a lot better, more independently. And if that's the case, just taking some time to do a little bit of research. Udemy, I have found personally, is a great resource for if you want to, they always have sales, which is the best part. If you want to find just a super introductory course, right, on whatever language that maybe, interests you. And if you can't figure out which language, like where do I even start? I feel like even just picking one, and just going at it and starting to learn the basics of syntax and things like that are a great way to just kind of start out. And making it fun, right? Playing around with it once you start to learn the basics, make something fun, make something that comes to your brain, whether it's a game or a super small little application or even something as simple as a to-do list or a calculator or something like that, right? Just making it fun, I think, is a great way to start out and just, see where it takes you. That's the advice I would give, I think.
Great. Kale, what would you suggest?
Get yourself pumped up by watching movies like Tron, Ghost in the Shell, The Matrix, War Games, so many good hacker movies. Try to envision yourself as that, someone in that world. Take a look at a picture of a microprocessor and really see how small transistors have become. And just look at these pictures of these microprocessors and it'll blow your mind. Alien technology in your laptops. Start by writing a website, make it fun, do it, whatever you're interested in, make a website, and then probably follow that up with a video game. I used to make a Zelda style, top video games. You can go on YouTube. YouTube is amazing. You can figure out how to do anything on YouTube, including coding. So check out some of the tutorials in there.
Great. I like the idea to watch some of those movies. I remember a few years ago, 'Halt and Catch Fire was a Netflix. Yeah, that's one that really shows you what it was like back in, I think it was the 90s, 80s or 90s when that was the setting of that was. Great. Arthur, what recommendations do you have?
I agree with a lot of what's being said so far. One more thing that I would like to add is a lot of the major languages and frameworks have really good documentations for beginners, right? That will teach you how to even set up your coding environment to start with. So some documentations can get very dry, as if you're not familiar with, the basics, you won't know what's going on, but a lot of major frameworks and languages have some basic stuff. So try something. If it's not fun, drop it, pick up something else. You will find something that you'll like somewhere down the road, because there's a lot of free resources. And if you find something that you will like, you will eventually get hooked and get better.
Great. Let's see, we haven't heard yet from Lila on this one.
Yeah, I totally agree with Judy. I think Udemy is definitely a good channel. They offer, many free classes. They always have sale that, you can focus on what you want to learn. I think that experiment, have fun with it. Do a hello world in each language and see which one you like the syntax better than the other, which one, makes you understand better. Go to Stackflow, Stack Overflow. Go there, copy some code, and then manipulate it yourself. Make changes to it so that you can better understand what each piece of it is doing, and you can then customize it, take notes. There are many good resources out there that, people can use. I think that being open to learning, it's the main thing. Nobody is going to come into a job knowing everything. And to be really honest, I was the chief bureau for data analytics at the state, and we used R as our primary language for coding for data analytics. I had never programmed in R. I used SQL. I knew a bunch of other languages, but R I didn't know. And I was just open to it. And I learned the syntax. And by the end of it, I was doing, 500 lines code by myself. So it's all about being open, learning, asking other people, and enjoying, So yeah, but I think Udemy is a great one, and Stack Overflow. When I interviewed people, I really wish they would tell me, I go to Stack Overflow if I get on a block. So rather than trying to make up an answer that something they didn't know. So
there's a question posted that I think is they're all interesting and important, but I do want to touch on this one. The question is, I'm a newbie, but I dabbled in programming a year ago. I got pretty unmotivated because I couldn't understand it. I also got unmotivated because whatever I thought somebody already built it and done it better. I think that's an important one for us to touch on, because having the grit and persistence to just keep going, and then just the self-efficacy that you believe that you can do this. I think that's super important. So I'll just leave it open to any of the panelists. If you can address that question, that would be super helpful.
If I can kind of bounce off, I actually kind of preemptively already started answering that in chat. As far as when it comes to anything that you think of that somebody you realize has already built and like, oh, this is already great. So why bother trying to make it? I had an internship at a previously at a sort of mobile app development company, and I'll never forget what the owner said to me. She said that what she tends to do is she'll look at apps and she'll just download them and test them and see what other people are doing and then think about how she would make it better, as versus you think up an idea and you think it's original, but then turns out somebody's already done it. Yeah, more than likely somebody has already done it, but the question is, how can you make it better? What is it missing, right? Is there a demographic that's not being hit with the current version of the app? Is there anything that you can add that will make it more fun, more interesting, more accessible, right? So I feel like changing your mindset in that regard. Your point that you made, Cheryl, on Grit, book called Grit. I can't remember the author. If I can find it, I'll put it in chat real quick. But it actually touches on that and, being able to stick to something repeatedly. Angela Duckworth. Yep, that's the one. It's a very good book. And it's definitely eye-opening to keeping on yourself on improving and having that grit to continuously get better at something, whether it's coding or anything else. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Thanks.
I would say, as far as grit goes, I don't know if the person asking the question drinks coffee yet, but programming and coffee go hand in hand, kind of gets us over the hurdle.
And I completely agree with Judy with regards to, there's not only one way to do things in IT. There's always a way to improve or to do something slightly different that may make a difference for, other people as well. And I completely agree with Kale as well. Coffee is life in the IT industry. So, to motivate yourself, try sharing with others, join some groups, some forums, share what you're doing, ask for people's opinion, exchange ideas. That would be my advice.
My first day at a company out in Silicon Valley, it felt more like my first day at Starbucks. The initiation was we went into the break room and we learned how to make like really strong espresso with the big espresso machines. Coffee and code.
I wanted to quickly address the idea that everything that you think could be original is something that's already been done before. Another way to think about it for me is like every new thing that's ever been done is a combination of old things that were made before, right? So if you acquire a bunch of different skills that's already covered, you can combine them into something new. So that's usually how I think about it when it comes to feeling like I'm not coming up with anything original.
I would add too that building software is kind of like building a car. You use pieces that are already made. You don't make the metal from scratch and make the engine from scratch. You get it from some other distributor, and then the software guys and girls are the people that put it all together. It's a lot of pre-made parts.
You'll also see, and I love the point, what is old becomes new again. There's actually, there's the futurist and evolution theories around that. And one of those is, how do we get to these new things? And sometimes it's just something old becomes new again. And then some of it comes from ideas that are that come from like science fiction. So where do you see the industry heading, like in this upcoming decade? And what can our emerging professionals do to be prepared? So, Kay, I'll let you jump in on that one first.
The next 10 years are going to be pretty wild. Visual Studio 2022 is a IDE, integrated development environment. This is where we write code. And currently now the places where you write code are connected to giant servers at Microsoft, which are running like algorithms, machine learning algorithms. And as you start to write the code, the code will suddenly, what you're trying to write will appear on your screen, and then you say yes or no, because it's parsing like all the code ever written, basically. And it, to the point before, like, you don't write new code. Yeah, you don't. I mean, someone's done something like what you're doing before, and so it'll automatically inject the best example of code for you. That alone, to me, describes the next 10 years. It's like this is crazy. Like, we're not even going to be coding anymore. I don't even know.
Arthur.
That is one of the things that I've been thinking about as well, right? But even if you have code that can autocomplete what you are trying to write, there comes a point where you still have to understand what it does and be able to decide whether it's doing what you expect it to do or not, right? So no matter how much help you can get from AI, and it might be useful and make coding easier, right? At some point you will still need to go back and fix something on your own or understand what is being done in order to add to it. So I would say that understanding the basics and focusing on getting all your basics down will make it easier, even if you have help from AI and stuff like that.
Judy, what are your thoughts?
I agree 100% with the fact of understanding kind of what goes on in the background. You know, as someone who has dabbled in Java and then compared it to C++, Java, there's a lot of things that we like to call automagical. They just kind of do things like garbage collection. And with C++, you got to do it all yourself. And it's like, wow, this is great. And so, you know, understanding what goes on behind the scenes and why things happen the way they do, I think is a good thing to know, even if learning a higher level language is going to be easier and help you get to programming things, you know, more quicker. And then just as far as like how the industry is going in general, at least in my experience and kind of what, you know, how I've come to be a React developer, as formerly a C++ developer, Nexient, who has a vast number of clients, you know, there aren't very many C++ jobs anymore as far as like, you know, in this consulting company, in contracting. And so, you know, keeping up to date on what are the, you know, more in-demand technologies and things like that, I think is a good thing to do, because then you can know what to focus on to make yourself more marketable. And that's what led to me in my career, is looking at, okay, C++ is not as marketable anymore, but React is very marketable right now. It's probably one of our most in-demand tech stacks right now. And so that's what led to my change. So just keeping an ear out for the buzzwords and the buzz languages that are going around to see how you can make yourself more desirable and more marketable.
Lila, what are your thoughts?
I think there are going to be a lot more opportunities, and I completely jumping on one of the things that Arthur said about artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is nothing more than a compilation of data that we humans have had and created, and then the machine is learning. So it's not going to do it themselves. It's not going, you know, like, it's always going to need us to guide it and to tell it, you know, like, what exactly are we intending this to do? It's not just compiling things and saying, okay, we have an AI algorithm right now, but yeah, what for? There are many nuances on that, you know, like, we need to work on. And I think with the development of everything and the digitization process being so fast, especially with the whole hurricane that we were thrown into after COVID, the opportunity for IoT, for connected devices, for all of that it's huge. And people don't stop to think about all the things they have connected in their house, that is collecting data, listening to what they're saying, what permissions they're giving, all of it. So whether you want to go into programming, whether you want to go into developing front end or, like the back end, or if you're looking into data privacy, security, or anything like that, there's opportunities for everybody. And it's all about learning. It's all about being open to learning. Like Judy said, like join forums and groups and, like discussion groups. So you can be up to date to what's being requested in the market. What is the market valuing right now? Someone asked us on the private chat about what certifications I could get. That is going to vary because the certifications we have today are not the ones we had yesterday. And depending on the industry you are in, there are going to be different ones that you should be focused on, things that you should be, like learning. It's all about learning. It's all about, like never stop learning. So if you don't like learning, this is not the industry for you. If you like changing and evolving, that's, like you need that in order to be in this industry.
So Lila and Arthur, you both touched on some things related to AI, mention of all of our devices being connected together with the Internet of Things, and then talked about code generation. So that begs the question around ethics and ethical responsibility. I'd like to ask you, what do you think are some of your responsibility in terms of, being ethical in developing this technology? And Lila, I'd like to start with you.
Of course. So that's a great question. And that's also a great problem that we have nowadays. I think that, me, myself, I have been an international speaker and digital educator for the past 10 years. So I have trained in different countries, in different industries, the workforce, not only to understand what they are doing at work, but also understanding how these devices are connected and how that can affect someone's life entirely. So one of the things that I've been trying to push for is the fact that we have a digital inclusion. Everybody has a smartphone, everybody has a smartwatch, everybody has an Alexa, but where is the digital education? There's no digital education. There's no digital education in schools. Kids are using these devices without knowing. Parents are using these devices without understanding or knowing. So I think that my job, especially as I'm directly into digital security and data privacy, is to help people understand what exactly are they agreeing to share, because they are agreeing to share. They install a calculator in their phone and the calculator is like, can I have access to your video and audio and your phone and your contacts? And it's just clicking yes. So it's really important for people to, create that awareness. That's what I try to do. And I try to do that when I do, webinars with my workforce and teaching people not only how to be safe at work, but also how to be safe at their houses. And I think that's a responsibility of all of us.
Great. Arthur.
One of the things that's important when you start programming at a higher scale is programming with security in mind first, right? Thinking how vulnerable is what I'm coding right now? What could go wrong if it lands in the wrong hands? And if you think of those things and prepare for them ahead of time, then you do a better job at giving a peace of mind to people who use your product. So I think that's an important thing to think about.
Great, thank you. Kale.
Ethics. I'll be honest, it's not always the top, it's not like the main thing I think about all day, but it's super important. Right now I'm working on some financial stuff for an oil company, and it's really important to protect everyone's privacy and their data. So I guess that's the angle I go at it. I really want to make sure that my users aren't exposed to being hacked on the web. I would say the other thing is, if you notice anything, that looks wrong, report it. Like I recently, a few years ago, reported some phishing schemes that I saw online to the FBI because, it's like, I'm not going to get nailed by that, but someone who's less tech savvy might. So like, just try to make the internet a better place.
Judy.
Kind of similar to Kale. Security isn't, or ethics isn't always, it's not touched on as much. But in that sense, I completely agree with Arthur in that we as developers need to be developing with security in mind. And especially when you are developing for a client and not just like for yourself. And then at Nexiant, when we have clients who are like medical clients, medical companies, or anything doing with medical, now you're dealing with HIPAA, right, and things like that, and learning those laws. And we have trainings and things for that. And then I feel like ethics also, at least to me, I guess it's more so accountability, but even still is, being able to tell your client, when something's not possible and express to them like this isn't going to be doable, and being accountable for that because you are the expert and they are relying on you to give, them the correct information that they need to make sure that the product that they get is exactly what they need. And things like that. So I just wanted to kind of add that in there because that kind of, I feel, is an ethical thing to do, to be that expert, not just always like feel like you have to say yes to absolutely everything, right? You're the expert and they're counting on you to be that expert.
Great. Daisy, just a time check. This was for up until 1, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
So we are at time.
Okay. All right. So thank you very much for everybody who attended, and thank you very much, panelists, for answering the questions. I will turn it over to Daisy for wrap up.
Yeah, thank you. And I will just echo what Cheryl just said. We appreciate everyone being here. We appreciate the amazing panelists that we had today. It was a great discussion. I've been in the chat putting quotes the whole entire time. I think a couple of them I'm going to turn into t-shirts, so I'll let you guys know once that hits. But otherwise, again, thank you for your time, and we will let you go. So we appreciate that, and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.